Hello. Thank you for coming back and watching the second part in a series of stories and testimonies I'm going to be telling over the coming weeks. And knowing me, most likely months, will be a plural to that month, of just dealing with mental health, with my struggles, with horrible choices and decisions I've made in my life, partly due to my struggles with mental health and my not quite understanding of what's going on inside my brain, and just trying to find something to latch on to, something that will make the madness to it, if not go away, to at least come down to a dull roar. But more than that, I want to specifically and most importantly highlight God's incredible goodness and mercy in my life, helping me to not only survive these terrible choices and decisions that I did make in the years and years and years, but also to help me finally come to a place where I have a better grip on what is going on inside my head. I have not arrived. I'm not arrived because I'm still here talking. I'm not arrived in heaven yet. But to this point, I have learned a lot, and I am so grateful for all that He's taught me. And this is why I'm doing these, because I want to bring honor to Him, but I also want to show you, for those of you who do suffer with mental health, that it is possible to function. So I picked this first story in this series because it was the first time I really began to lash out, to respond to what was going on inside my brain that I did not understand, but I just knew that I wanted to silence it and to shut it up. So I decided to start cutting. People who cut, more often than not, will use a razor blade and put lines and things like that in their arms, because it releases, chemical responses, serotonin, things like that in the brain to react to the pain, which then kind of throws a blanket over the swirling madness and the confusion in someone's brain, because now they're focused on the pain. But being who I am, I did not want to use a razor blade. I had to do something that was big, because that's who I am. I am a big personality. I want the world to see that, I exist. So I used a butterfly knife to do my carving. Marks, things, boring little stuff like that. But at this time in my life, in my late teens, 17 I think, somewhere at that point, I was really struggling with my parents, and my parents were really struggling with me. We were both having a hard time dealing with me. Me dealing with myself, them trying to deal with me, and me trying to deal with them trying to deal with me. It all makes sense? Sure it does. We spent a lot of time fighting. Let's just say that. A lot of time fighting. It is what it is. So, bored with the little marks, I decided, you know what? I'm going to put the ultimate expression of my frustration into my leg by carving "Parents Suck." I have a red "Parents Suck" in my leg at that time. I'm thankful now that over the years, with my insanely, excessively hairy legs and skin and tans over the years and all that kind of thing, I've covered over it. So there's not a single mark on my leg that you could tell I wrote "Parents Suck" in it. Thankful for that. Also at this time, I've been into sports for much of my life, but I was hyper focused on sports at this point. I was just determined to be the best I could be for my junior and senior year. I don't want to use the word legacy. I hate that word. But that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to leave my mark. How about that? I left my mark at school. So I spent a lot of time playing and practicing, a lot of time. At that point, I went to a very small Christian school that was connected to the church that I was also going to. My father was on the deacon board, and I believe he was also on the chairman board of the school side, so he had keys to the whole school, the whole building. So I got to go and practice at the gym pretty much anytime I wanted, because I always had the keys and I had the combination to the equipment room. So I spent a lot of hours there, a lot of hours, late into the night, just shooting hoops by myself, kicking a soccer ball off the walls, because it comes back, I can practice my trapping and dribbling and all this stuff. So I spent a lot of time practicing. Senior year rolls around. I had made a goal for myself for the soccer season to score at least one goal in every game. That was my ambition, if not multiple goals. I was just committed to this. So we're at an away game. It's a team that, are probably evenly matched. We win as many as we lose against them. They're perfectly matched. I was having a terrible game. I could not focus. I don't remember what my problem was, but I just was not at all up to my expectations I had set for myself. But things got worse because I kept noticing my girlfriend over on the players' bench. She was taking stats and keeping track of the coach's book, and just that was her thing. That was her job. A kid that I went to school with, 1 year younger than me, I couldn't stand that kid. He just rubbed me the wrong way. He comes over to her. He's not even on the team, but he sits down on the bench next to her and starts harassing her and flirting with her. So now I'm like really focused and distracted by this situation. I'm already having a terrible game. It just got exponentially worse because now I'm like, what is this guy doing? Terrible game. No surprise. We got blown out. I didn't score a goal. It was terrible. On the way home, I am pouting and, teenage angst and being all dramatic, mad at myself. Looking back, I can see now what I was doing. I'm just kind of like mentally punishing myself for being so worthless, and you have so little you can do. Sports is your thing, and you can't even do that right. You're pathetic. All this stuff. For those who suffer with mental health, you know what I'm talking about. At this point, I'm thinking I gotta punish myself when I get home. I'm so sick of cutting. It's just so boring, and I was tired of doing it. I wanted to do something bigger. As I've said, everything's got to be bigger for me. At that point, we lived out in the country, and I knew that there was down the road a little bit, out in the woods, there was a house used to be there. It was no longer there. I think it was burnt down. I don't know if it was for insurance reasons, but that doesn't matter. But they still had a pretty large shed, kind of storage shed on the property. It was still intact and standing. I used to go down there and hang out as a kid because I thought it was just so cool. Some abandoned building in the woods, just explore it. I knew that there was all the windows still intact, so I'm thinking, I know what I'm going to do. Plan is in place. Get home, tell my mother I'm going to go ride my bike, whatever. It's a beautiful day still, so I'm going to go and just ride around. I go straight to this house. I get into the shed, and I'm staring at the windows and thinking, okay, it's now or never. So I focus on the first window. I square up, and I punch it. But I don't punch it hard enough. The window is still, I can hear it laughing at me like that's all you got. Now, it hurt a little bit. It felt like kind of like a punch in a wall, which I had punched many walls as a kid. But it's just, I'm like, that was so stupid. I'm like, don't be a wuss. You came down here for a purpose. Don't fail at this like you failed at your game today. So, you're done, window. You laughing at me? So I wound up and punched it so hard. I put absolutely everything I had into way more than enough to break this window. I feel the pain. I see the immediate response of a couple cuts and the blood. I'm thinking, whoa, man, that hurt, but that's kind of cool. My crazy brain is telling me that's kind of cool. My crazy brain is telling me this is amazing. Keep going, boy. So I did. So I kept punching out the rest of the windows. I'm interchanging with both hands, because this poor guy, he was feeling left out. To be a part of the whole fun and the excitement, the big show. At the end, all the windows are broken, all 13 of them. And I'm standing there in the middle of this shed. And my hands are kind of trembling at this point. Blood is just everywhere. Oh man, that was unbelievable. Adrenaline is so spiked. So I thought, well, it's time to go home. I probably overstayed my welcome because, it was a house not too far down. I don't know how they could have heard 13 windows breaking. So I'd rather just leave the scene of the crime, as it were. But I gotta leave on a high note here. So I take my finger, I swirl some blood, and I write on the wall in big, sprawling, bloody letters, Jeremy was here. It's pathetic. But I did it. I left my mark. So I ride home, and the adrenaline is absolutely subsiding. I'm starting to feel the pain and twitching. I'm sure I'm leaving a bloody trail on the road, and starting to get a little nervous. What have I just done? I can't possibly hide this from my parents. They're going to throw me into a mental hospital for sure. I'm going in the loony bin. Cut to the chase, they didn't, but cops would way later down the road in quite a few years. But that's a different story, and a lot of stories in between to get to how that happened. Back to this moment. I get home. My mother and my 3 younger sisters are down at the barn. We lived next to a farm, and the farmer loved that we would go down and feed the cats and keep them alive long enough to do their job, which is, eat all the mice. So they're down there, and I have the house to myself. But I'm thinking, I don't want to get blood everywhere, and I'm feeling very ashamed at this point of what I've just done. So I go down in the basement and just kind of sit there. I'm kind of leaning against the wall, this kind of dungeony looking old house basement, and I'm just thinking, I was dumb. I just made a huge mistake. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. Couple minutes, however long it took, I hear my mother and my sisters come home. I hear them upstairs, and they're talking, chattering, whatever. All of a sudden, it just stops, like record scratch. They obviously didn't see the blood everywhere. I'm leaving bloody trails. So my mother, excuse me, my mother starts calling, Jeremy, are you here? Are you okay? I hear her calling for me throughout the house, and as I said, I was really struggling with getting along with my parents. And for some reason, hearing my mother stressed out and anxious excited me. That's pretty messed up, but I felt like I'm causing her pain. This is an unexpected bonus. So now I'm laughing to myself at my mother's pain. Eventually, I hear steps. I hear feet come down the steps of the basement. I see my oldest sister show up and just kind of spot me. She's looking at me. I look over at her. I just kind of wave. And Mom, he's down in the basement. She goes upstairs. I think, all right, it's time. I got to face the music. So I go upstairs. My mother, now relieved that I'm alive, that there's not, some psycho killer running amok throughout the house, she cuts down on mother mode and turns on nurse mode. She used to be a nurse, so she gets me under the kitchen sink and wiping my hands, cleaning it off. And I'm pretty sure my older sister was handing her Band-Aids to, whatever. She gets to the cut over here. And she keeps getting under there and keeps trying to do this under the water. There was some kind of dirt or debris or whatever, something stuck, and she could not get it off. She just kept doing this. And finally she stops. She's like, it's probably not good. She was, I don't know what it was, some sort of stringy, fleshy type thing was coming out of my hand. She just kept pulling it out, like a loose yarn out of a ball of yarn. So she stops what she's doing, rolls it up into a little ball, and pushes it into my hand. Her finger is now in my hand, and she kind of holds it there, and then quickly pulls it out and pinches. And that's what she's doing. She's holding it in my hand for a little bit, and then eventually she takes the Band-Aids and makes a butterfly Band-Aid out of my hand. So, my father came home, they talked, and they realized that, there's something not quite right with their son, but they don't know yet. It would take a long, long time for the answers to come, what was going on in my brain. But they definitely decided it was time to start paying better attention to what was going on with me, and if it got ever any worse. So I wrap up this story, and I want to put a bow on it, and I want to tell you that for those of you who suffer with cutting, with mental health and depression, all this stuff, that I strongly encourage you to get help. Don't suffer alone. I suffered alone for a long time. And in that process, I made an unbelievable amount of bad choices. There's absolutely no reason, apart from God's endless mercy and grace in my life, I am still alive. There are so many times I should have died. Those stories I will tell. Those are forthcoming. But please, get the help you need. If you have your own story, leave it in the comments. If you want prayer, ask for me to pray for you. Ask the community of people who are watching these to pray. Do not suffer alone. Okay, get help. It's there. And the last thing I want to say about that is there's help, absolutely, but the greatest help for suffering people is Jesus. Go to him. Throw yourself at his mercy. Ask him for help in what you're struggling with. Jesus is there and waiting and ready to help you. He will not cast anyone off. It says in Scripture that he will not cast anyone away who comes to him. So please go to him. Go to help. Ask people that you love and trust to help you. Okay. Thank you very much. The next story will come out here eventually. Until then, keep pressing on. I'll talk to you later, my friends.